I learned that kick, 40 years ago or 30 years, 45 years ago, I don't know.
It's kind of hard to understand today why Steven Seagal was such a big star in the late 80s and early 90s. Despite his limited acting range and sizable ego, the ponytailed action hero was one of the biggest names in Hollywood. During his peak, he worked alongside many prolific A-listers and character actors, many of whom have shared colorful stories about Seagal's often outrageous, dramatic, and sometimes even violent behavior on set. In addition, Seagal has had dealings with both the mafia and Vladimir Putin. So, let's delve into the rise and fall and the untold truths of Steven Seagal. Steve, the on-set diva. In 1992, Steven Seagal starred in Under Siege, an action flick that grossed over $150 million worldwide. In 2003, he played in The Foreigner, a movie with a 0% rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But the ups and downs of Seagal's filmography only tell one part of his stranger-than-fiction story. If you followed him at all over the years, you know there's a lot to talk about. Basically, this guy has come a long way, much of it down since the 1990s. In addition to some of the messes surrounding his still prolific movie career, Seagal has been involved in a long string of scandals featuring the likes of Sean Connery and Vladimir Putin. Yes, that Vladimir Putin. He's taken a stab at reality TV, real-life law enforcement, various licensed products, and a recording career. The guy has even gone up against the mob and the FBI. While his career is often derided by critics, there's no denying Seagal lives life wildly. Seagal debuts strongly with Above the Law. The 80s saw the rise of muscle-bound martial arts stars who roundhoused entire warehouses full of B-movie bad guys with terrible aim, as noted by Hollywood Insider. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone are the most notable names, but Jean-Claude Van Damme and Chuck Norris were also key players in this era. In 1988, Steven Seagal joined the ranks of these action heroes with his debut in Above the Law, a crime thriller that he both starred in and co-wrote. In the film, Seagal plays Nico Toscani, a former CIA operative who uses his martial arts skills to help Chicago cops take down a heavily armed drug ring. While Above the Law wasn't a critical darling, Rotten Tomatoes gives it a lukewarm 50% rating based on 20 reviews. It remains one of Seagal's best-known films. More importantly, it was an effective launchpad for his career, establishing him as a chisel-jawed, no-nonsense name to watch. Roger Ebert even gave the movie 3 stars and praised Seagal himself. Seagal more or less deserves the build-up, Ebert wrote, referencing the industry buzz around him. He does have a strong and particular screen presence. It is obvious he is doing a lot of his own stunts, and some of the fight sequences are impressive and apparently unfaked. He isn't just a hunk either. He can play tender and he can play smart, 2 notes often missing on the Bronson and Stallone accordions. Under Siege is Seagal's finest hour. Steven Seagal's breakout film, Above the Law, put him on the map in 1988, which should have been great news. However, this success came just as the action B-movie genre was winding down. By the time Seagal karate chopped his way to the top in the early 90s, the craze was already fading. Despite the genre's decline, Seagal had one more significant hit, 1992's star-studded Under Siege. In this film, Seagal stars as Casey Ryback, a Navy SEAL turned cook who must thwart terrorist William Stranix, played by Tommy Lee Jones, and his inside man, Commander Peter Krill, played by Gary Busey, after they commandeer the USS Missouri. The villain's initial takeover seems successful until they realize Ryback is stealthily eliminating their accomplices, leading up to an epic final showdown. Roger Ebert, in his 3-star review, aptly described the formula as Die Hard goes to sea. Ebert admitted that he approached the film with skepticism, but found himself unexpectedly entertained. He praised the cast, noting that the villains were superb, vile, and deliriously insane. Regarding Seagal's performance, Ebert remarked, "He makes a convincing cook. He can hit a target with a carving knife at 20 paces. Ultimately, Under Siege remains Seagal's highest-ranking movie, earning a respectable 79% on Rotten Tomatoes. Seagal's martial arts skills were always debatable. From the beginning, Steven Seagal built his on-screen persona around his fighting skills, and anyone familiar with Seagal knows he isn't just pretending to know martial arts. He's a black belt in Aikido, a relatively new martial art. However, Aikido isn't highly regarded in the martial arts world. Way of Martial Arts explains that Aikido focuses more on mindfulness and passive defense than on taking down dangerous opponents. This philosophy of harmony and selflessness seems like an odd fit for Seagal's tough guy image. Most of his fight scenes involve him deflecting poorly trained bad guys rather than aggressively attacking, which reflects Aikido's reactionary style. Way of Martial Arts points out that while Aikido can be effective, it's mainly useful against untrained opponents. The martial arts community has questioned Seagal's legitimacy for years. During his rise to fame, a June 1992 issue of Black Belt magazine detailed an attempt by a group of karate and kickboxing masters to arrange a fight with Seagal to expose him as a fraud. This challenge coincided with the release of Under Siege, but the showdown never happened. He's incredibly difficult to work with. According to multiple actors, Steven Seagal is an incredibly difficult co-worker. While filming Executive Decision, Seagal allegedly got angry with his co-star John Leguizamo and shoved him against a wall. Seagal also made life hard for the Saturday Night Live cast. When he hosted the show in 1991, he was reportedly very critical of the cast and writing staff. Tim Meadows noted that Seagal didn't realize that you can't tell somebody they're stupid on Wednesday and expect them to continue writing for you on Saturday. David Spade mentioned that in his 6 years on the show, Seagal was the absolute worst host, likely due to his poor taste in comedy. Julia Sweeney shared that Seagal wanted to perform a sketch where he played a therapist who wanted to sleep with a rape survivor. As a result of his behavior, he was banned from ever hosting the show again. In The Glimmer Man, Stephen Tobolowsky played a serial killer who was supposed to be defeated by Seagal. However, Seagal decided it was bad for his karma to keep killing people on screen. Thinking on his feet, Tobolowsky explained that his character was trapped in his own private hell, and by killing the villain, Seagal's character would be allowing the bad guy to reincarnate as a more peaceful being. Seagal agreed, and the scene went on as scripted. Unfortunately, Seagal later ad-libbed the line, "Thank God I didn't kill that guy." Tobolowsky then had to record a few lines to make it seem like his obviously dead character had survived like a bad horror movie monster. However, those lines didn't make the final cut. Seagal bombs on SNL. Considering the limited time writers have to produce culturally relevant material, the number of sketches per episode, and the varying comedic abilities of celebrity guest hosts, it's amazing that Saturday Night Live is as funny as it is. Sometimes you'll get a Tom Hanks or Steve Martin who leads the cast in a hilarious round of comedy. Other times, like in April 1991, you might end up with Steven Seagal, who, according to Mental Floss, is widely considered to be the worst host in the show's history. Yes, after decades of almost weekly episodes and plenty of less than stellar hosts, Steven Seagal is often cited as the worst. According to Tom Shales's book, Live from New York, The Complete Uncensored History of Saturday Night Live, as told by its stars, writers, and guests, Seagal was exceedingly difficult to work with. He shot down almost every idea the writers proposed and refused to appear in any skit that didn't frame him as a macho tough guy. Seagal also insisted on pitching his own sketch ideas. Julia Sweeney recalled, "Some of his sketch ideas were so heinous, so hilariously awful, it was like we were on candid camera." She wasn't alone in her assessment. SNL chief Lorne Michaels echoed this sentiment. When host Nicolas Cage jokingly said he thought he'd be the worst host the show had ever seen during a 2014 episode, Michaels responded, "No, That was Steven Seagal. Seagal turns to direct-to-video content. Steven Seagal burst onto the scene with hits like Above the Law in 1988 and Under Siege in 1992, cementing his status in the realm of action-packed B-movies. However, his subsequent filmography lacks the same level of impact. Although he appeared in 2010's Machete as Rogelio Torres, a former partner turned criminal, it wasn't until then that he grabbed audience attention. The film struck a balance between self-awareness and schlock, earning a respectable 71% on the Rotten Tomatoes tomatometer. In the years leading up to Machete, Seagal seemed to steer clear of the big screen, opting instead for the shadows of direct-to-video releases. Throughout the first decade of the 21st century, a staggering 16 out of 24 films featuring Seagal skipped theaters entirely, landing directly on on-demand platforms or DVD. Predictably, these productions suffered from common issues like tight budgets, uninspired writing, and recycled plot lines set in cliched locations such as abandoned warehouses, often featuring a limited arsenal of prop guns. Among these films, Black Dawn stands out as a notable example, not for its quality, but for Seagal's absence from the action scenes. He reportedly left the production midway through filming, leaving viewers to wonder about the behind-the-scenes turmoil that plagued the movie. Seagal pumps out the crap. Transitioning to a direct-to-video career might not be the hallmark of cinematic excellence, but Steven Seagal's recent ventures into this realm have reached levels of hilariously bad that even the lowest budgets and laziest cover art couldn't fully prepare you for. The challenge lies in spreading the word about these cinematic catastrophes, as they've largely flown under the radar, escaping the scrutiny of reviewers and the confines of a tomatometer score. Yet, a quick glance at their covers reveals a common motif: a grizzled Seagal, sporting his trademark jet black goatee, glaring menacingly in front of an over-the-top explosion. While the majority of these films remain largely uncharted territory, a few notable examples have emerged from the shadows. Take Out for a Kill, for instance, where Seagal allegedly manages an entire fight scene from a seated position, a testament to the level of laziness achieved. Then there's Sniper Special Ops, which, despite its promising title, fails to deliver any semblance of entertainment, according to John Noonan from Film Inc. And let's not forget The Perfect Weapon, a film so abysmal that its non-existent critics' score and dismal 10% audience approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes speaks volumes. Here, Seagal takes on the role of a dystopian futuristic dictator, with a twist ending so ludicrously laughable that it's best left unspoiled by viewing: his weird relationship with the UFC. In February 2011, UFC fans witnessed a historic moment when middleweight champion Anderson Silva faced off against Vitor Belfort. At the time, Silva was considered the greatest mixed martial artist in the world. In the first round, Silva delivered a stunning front kick to Belfort's face, knocking him out and creating one of the most iconic moments in UFC history. Just days later, Steven Seagal claimed all the credit. According to Seagal, he taught Silva that kick, even going so far as to say he invented it. While many doubted his claims, the actor had indeed escorted Silva to the ring that night. A few events later, Lyoto Machida knocked out the legendary Randy Couture with a Karate Kid-style crane kick, and once again Seagal took credit, boasting about it on Jimmy Kimmel Live. Initially, Silva seemed to play along with the joke, but eventually he clarified the situation. Silva admitted he had been practicing that kick long before he met Seagal. "Seagal is a good man," Silva said. "No coach, no train me. He is a good man. He is a good person. That's it." Other athletes were far less polite. When Seagal tried to go backstage at UFC 135 to advise light heavyweight champ John Jones, the fighter turned him away. Ronda Rousey even claimed she could beat the crap out of the actor. Seagal also challenged two-time ex-champion Randy Couture to a fight. When asked about the matchup, Couture remarked that he wasn't surprised Seagal wanted to fight in a private, remote location where nobody could see it happen. Steven Seagal versus James Bond. Steven Seagal has a notable history as a fight choreographer, with most of his work featured in his own films. However, in the early 80s, he stepped into a different role by working on the James Bond film, Never Say Never Again, where he taught martial arts to Sean Connery. Connery, already well-versed in karate and holding an honorary third-degree black belt from his preparation for the 1967 Bond film You Only Live Twice, needed to learn some Aikido for his 7th outing as the famous spy. Seagal instructed Connery on techniques like throwing opponents and joint manipulation. Initially, the lessons were progressing smoothly. Connery, feeling confident in his abilities, admitted, "I got a little cocky because I thought I knew what I was doing." This confidence led to a mishap where an irritated Seagal allegedly grabbed Connery's arm and broke his wrist. Despite the pain, Connery continued his training, not realizing the severity of his injury until the late 90s. It's a testament to Connery's toughness that he carried on with a broken wrist for so long. Seagal himself is no stranger to enduring pain. During the filming of his breakout movie, Above the Law, actor Henry Silva accidentally broke Seagal's nose with an overzealous punch. Demonstrating his dedication, Seagal stayed up late that night, icing his injured face so he could continue shooting the next day. Steven Seagal versus the Dirty Dozen. During his prime, Steven Seagal was Hollywood's biggest martial arts star. However, his real-life fighting prowess has always been a topic of debate. Seagal holds a 7th Dan in Aikido, a martial art focusing on joint locks and the redirection of momentum. Notably, he was the first American to teach Aikido in Japan. Despite these credentials, many experts consider Aikido ineffective for self-defense. Fight analyst Jack Slack points out that Aikido's techniques are only useful if your opponent charges straight at you, a scenario most savvy fighters avoid. UFC commentator Joe Rogan has bluntly stated that Aikido would never work against a trained fighter. Despite this, Seagal often boasted about his ability to defeat anyone, anywhere, anytime. His bravado extended to making controversial remarks about martial arts legends like Bruce Lee, Chuck Norris, and the practice of full-contact karate. These comments didn't sit well with Bob Wall, an actor, high-ranking black belt, and close friend of both Lee and Norris. Wall, who had extensive tournament experience, was unimpressed with Seagal's attitude and decided to challenge him. Wall assembled a group known as the Dirty Dozen, composed of kickboxing and karate champions such as Benny Urquidez, Bill Wallace, and Howard Jackson. Their motivations varied. Some wanted to expose Seagal as a fraud, while others were upset by his comments and allegations that he had injured stuntmen on set. To get Seagal's attention, the Dirty Dozen made their challenge public through magazines like Preview and Black Belt. Despite their efforts, a showdown never materialized. When Seagal eventually met Wall, he reportedly apologized for his previous remarks. The time Steven Seagal got choked out. Although Steven Seagal never faced Bob Wall, rumors suggest he had a run-in with judo Gene LeBell. LeBell, a martial arts icon, has delved into various fighting styles, mastering everything from taekwondo to boxing. His expertise lies particularly in grappling, excelling in judo and jiu-jitsu. With 2 national heavyweight judo titles under his belt, LeBell even instructed Bruce Lee in grappling techniques and mentored UFC superstar Ronda Rousey. Notably, he participated in the first televised MMA bout in American history in 1963, showcasing his ground game against boxer Milo Savage. Beyond his martial arts prowess, LeBell boasts an extensive career as an actor and stuntman, appearing in over 1,000 films and TV shows. He served as the fight choreographer on Out for Justice, an action film featuring Seagal. During filming, Seagal purportedly boasted that no one could render him unconscious, claiming to possess a unique technique to prevent being choked out. Gene, undeterred, accepted the challenge, leading to a showdown between the two. Within moments, LeBell applied a rear-naked choke on Seagal. Allegedly, Seagal resorted to a desperate move, a karate strike to LeBell's groin. Despite the underhanded tactic, LeBell maintained his grip, causing Seagal to lose consciousness. Adding insult to injury, the actor reportedly had an embarrassing bodily reaction, which LeBell attributes to Seagal having eaten a hearty meal before the match. Although Seagal denies the altercation, according to LeBell, the godfather of grappling, Seagal's fighting skills were sorely lacking. Steven Seagal versus the mob. Steven Seagal is no stranger to facing off against villains, whether on the big screen or in real life. In the 90s, Seagal formed a successful partnership with producer Julius R. Nasso, resulting in a string of hit films. However, their collaboration turned sour in 2000, leading to a bitter fallout. Matters took a sinister turn when the Gambino crime family entered the picture. Seagal found himself escorted to a Brooklyn restaurant, where he encountered Anthony "Sonny" Ciccone, an alleged captain of the Gambino family. Ciccone reportedly issued demands for Seagal to resume working with Nasso and insisted on a hefty payment of $150,000 for each film Seagal made. Feeling threatened, Seagal complied and handed over $700,000 to the gangsters. The gravity of the situation was not lost on Seagal, who was warned as he left the meeting that speaking out of turn could have deadly consequences. The scandal erupted in 2003 when the government indicted alleged crime boss Peter Gotti and 16 others on various charges. Seagal's testimony, coupled with recorded conversations among individuals like Ciccone and Nasso, revealed their efforts to intimidate the movie star. Despite Nasso's claims that Seagal owed him $500,000 due to backing out of film deals, he was sentenced to a year in federal prison. Seeking recompense, Nasso sued Seagal for $60 million. After his release from prison, Nasso reached a confidential settlement with Seagal, bringing an end to their tumultuous legal battle. Seagal has physically abused his co-stars on numerous occasions. Steven Seagal's reputation for on-set antics suggests that his tough guy persona isn't just for show. Sean Connery famously recounted how Seagal broke his wrist during the filming of Never Say Never Again, where Seagal served as a fight coordinator. Connery revealed to Jay Leno that the injury lingered for years, impacting his mobility. But it wasn't just accidents that marked Seagal's behavior. Actor John Leguizamo shared a chilling encounter during the filming of Executive Decision in 1996. In an interview with AV Club, Leguizamo recalled Seagal's authoritative arrival on set, declaring himself the ultimate authority. When Leguizamo laughed at his statement, Seagal responded aggressively, elbowing him into a brick wall, leaving him gasping for air on the ground. Seagal's aggression extended beyond the set, as he allegedly threatened Leguizamo after discovering the actor had mocked him in the graphic novel Ghetto Clown. Despite the threat, Leguizamo remains unfazed, suggesting that Seagal's days of red carpet appearances might be numbered. Reflecting on Seagal's transformation into what he called a putz and egomaniacal diva, Leguizamo seems more amused than intimidated by the martial arts star's behavior. Seagal's law enforcement antics have gotten him into trouble. One of the most surprising, yet somehow unsurprising facts about Steven Seagal is that he holds a license as a police officer, showcased in the reality TV series Steven Seagal Lawman. However, as expected, Seagal's law enforcement activities on the show aren't your typical community policing. In a promotional video for one episode, Seagal can be heard saying, "Right now, my team and I are gearing up to take down a suspect, Jesus Sanchez Lovera, wanted for animal cruelty. Given what we know about this guy, we feel that it's going to be safest to deploy SWAT. We'll be using 2 armored personnel carriers to breach the perimeter." The description may sound extreme, and it was. According to a lawsuit filed by the homeowner, Seagal's dramatic intervention was followed by a platoon of SWAT officers clad in full riot gear. They raided the Lovera residence, resulting in the inadvertent death of over 100 chickens that were supposedly the subjects of the rescue mission, while the remaining animals scattered in panic. Tragically, the Lovera family's puppy also lost its life in the chaos. Seeking $100,000 in damages, Lovera demanded not only financial compensation but also a written apology from Seagal to his children for the loss of their 11-month-old pet, described as a beloved family member. Seagal has been accused of sexual assault. Rachel Grant, a Bond girl from Die Another Day, accused Steven Seagal of forcibly pulling her top down and attempting to force her onto his bed in a hotel room back in 2002. She claimed that after rejecting his advances, she didn't receive the part she had been auditioning for in Out for a Kill. In an interview with Movie Line, Jenny McCarthy recounted an incident during her audition for Under Siege 2, where Seagal allegedly instructed her to undress and then grabbed her when she objected, demanding her silence. In 2010, TMZ reported that Seagal was sued by Caden Nguyen, who accused him of repeatedly attempting to grope her and forcibly drugging her. Nguyen also alleged Seagal's involvement in sex trafficking, claiming he was surrounded by young Russian women catering to his every need. Another TMZ article detailed Seagal's pattern of inviting women to his home under the pretext of discussing movie roles, only to make unwanted sexual advances. Blair Robinson claimed she fled from one such encounter after Seagal suggested they engage in mutual massages. Seagal goes all in for Putin. In February 2022, Russia faced widespread condemnation for its invasion of Ukraine. Despite the heavy blow of international sanctions and isolation, they weren't entirely isolated. Steven Seagal, known for his roles in films like Under Siege, which premiered 3 decades prior, maintained his supportive stance towards Russian President Vladimir Putin, a position that had sparked controversy even before the conflict. The action star has established connections with the Kremlin over the years. While rumors circulated that Seagal was physically involved in the conflict in eastern Ukraine, these were debunked. However, his ties with Russia remained strong, and if anything, his support for Putin's regime seemed to intensify after the invasion. In April 2022, a Twitter clip showed Seagal delivering a motivational speech to senior Russian officials. Additionally, a Newsweek article highlighted Seagal's criticism of Ukraine's use of the HIMARS artillery system, echoing Russian assertions about the need to denazify Ukraine through military action. In October 2022, Seagal took to Instagram to wish Putin a happy birthday, expressing sincere admiration. Today is President Putin's birthday. I just think that we are now living in very, very trying times. He is one of the greatest world leaders and one of the greatest presidents in the world. He loves animals, especially mystical ones. Despite his reputation for martial arts prowess and bone-breaking action on screen, Seagal's demeanor toward animals is surprisingly gentle and compassionate. As a vegetarian, he prefers advocating for change through persuasion rather than force. Seagal views himself as interconnected with all living beings, stating, "When I walk into a room, some people see a dog, some people see a cow. I am all of what they see. It is their perception." In 1999, Seagal took action to halt South Africa's export of baby elephants to Japan, earning him a PETA Humanitarian Award. Years later, he intervened in Thailand to end the mistreatment of baby elephants, claiming to have catalyzed change single-handedly. He has also sought to raise awareness about the treatment of cows in India. Interestingly, Seagal has a fondness for animals with supposed prophetic abilities. He recounted an encounter with a white dog during his early days learning Aikido in Japan, claiming the dog telepathically warned him of a fire in his dojo. PETA, despite the fantastical nature of the story, recognized Seagal's advocacy and awarded him nonetheless. He's a guitar-slinging singer-songwriter who loves the blues. Seagal isn't just known for his martial arts prowess, he's also got a passion for making music, particularly blues. He's been strumming the guitar since he was 12 and fronts the Steven Seagal Blues Band. Although he's been at it for a while, his debut album, Songs from the Crystal Cave, didn't hit the shelves until 2005. If you're into blues and looking for something new, it might pique your interest. However, it's worth noting that it's a far cry from the gritty and soulful sound of legends like B.B. King or Buddy Guy. Critics have had mixed opinions on Seagal's musical endeavors. Sputnik Music likened the album to the cult classic film Plan 9 from Outer Space. Perhaps due to Seagal's mumbly singing style, unimpressive guitar work, and lyrics like, "You're like a ghost. The more you eat, the more you're hungry. A hungrier ghost." But hey, don't just take our word for it. Give the music a listen yourself. Tracks like Music, Girl, It's All Right, and Jealousy offer a glimpse into Seagal's musical world, even if they might not be everyone's cup of tea. Seagal's insane raid. Apart from his passion for blues music and fancy saddles, Seagal has a deep interest in law enforcement. In fact, he served as a deputy sheriff in Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, for nearly 2 decades. Taking his law enforcement endeavors to the screen, Seagal starred in a reality show titled Steven Seagal Lawman in 2009. For its 3rd season, Seagal relocated to Arizona, joining forces with the controversial Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County. Known for his media savvy, Arpaio embraced the opportunity for some on-camera action alongside Seagal. In a highly publicized event in 2011, Arpaio orchestrated a raid targeting Jesus Lovera, a local suspected of involvement in cockfighting. The raid was nothing short of a spectacle, involving a massive law enforcement presence, including up to 40 SWAT officers, a bomb squad, K-9 units, armored vehicles, and even Seagal riding atop a tank. During the operation, significant damage was inflicted on Lovera's property, with Seagal's tank knocking down the gates. Following Lovera's arrest, authorities faced the challenge of dealing with his extensive collection of roosters, numbering over 100. Ultimately, they chose to euthanize the birds, much to Lovera's dismay, who also claimed that his 11-month-old puppy was killed during the raid. Infuriated by the incident, Lovera initiated legal action against the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, demanding an apology from Seagal. However, after pleading guilty to charges related to cockfighting, Lovera dropped the lawsuit. Fortunately, the chaotic raid never made it to television screens. Was Seagal a company man? The People profile shed light on Seagal's self-portrayed upbringing as a New York native and questioned one of his stories from his pre-Hollywood days. Seagal had claimed that while living in Osaka in the 1970s with his first wife, Miyako Fujitani, he provided training and consulting services for the CIA. This anecdote, which lacked verification, surfaced in 1988 during the promotion of his debut film, Above the Law. The movie's narrative revolves around rogue CIA agents, and Seagal hinted that the script drew inspiration from his own experiences within the agency. He even told newscaster Jane Pauley that certain aspects of the film were autobiographical. Fujitani refrained from discussing her husband's alleged covert activities during their decade-long marriage. However, she acknowledged to People that there were extended periods when he was unreachable. While Seagal claimed to have been involved in safeguarding individuals like the Shah of Iran or Bishop Desmond Tutu, Fujitani suggested that he might have been more of an absent spouse and father. In the early 1990s, he enlisted the services of retired intelligence officer Herbert Saunders for security purposes. In a 2003 interview with the New York Post, Saunders confirmed that Seagal had urged him to leverage his CIA connections for various tasks, including stealing files from the Drug Enforcement Agency and even carrying out assassinations. Saunders remarked that his former client seemed unable to distinguish between fantasy and reality. Weird science, with the woman in red. During Seagal's early career, figures like Michael Ovitz played significant roles in shaping his trajectory. Another notable figure was British actress and model Kelly LeBrock, who gained attention in the mid-1980s for her roles in films like The Woman in Red and Weird Science. LeBrock and Seagal crossed paths in Tokyo, where she was filming a fashion campaign. Their relationship added a certain prestige to Seagal's image, as evidenced by his remark in a 1986 LA Times profile, where he referred to LeBrock as his reward for years of self-denial. The term years of self-denial might seem peculiar, especially considering Seagal's decade-long marriage to Fujitani, which resulted in 2 children. However, the profile glossed over this aspect. The way writer Jeff Myers embraced Seagal's narrative of devoted martial arts training from age 18 onward might suggest Seagal was inexperienced prior to meeting LeBrock. Yet Seagal had been married twice before their encounter. In 1984, he wed actress Adrienne LaRussa, despite still being legally married to Fujitani. Their marriage was annulled within a year. By 1987, Seagal and Fujitani were divorced. His marriage to LeBrock also ended on less than amicable terms in 1996. Steven Seagal versus the SEC. Seagal has shown a willingness to associate himself with risky ventures, and one of the riskiest in recent memory was the cryptocurrency craze of the late 2010s and early 2020s. In the first quarter of 2018, Seagal threw his support behind Bitcoin to Gen, also known as B2G, promoting it on his social media channels and allowing his image to be used in official B2G marketing materials. However, what Seagal didn't disclose was that he had been promised $250,000 in cash and an additional $750,000 in B2G tokens for his endorsement, which violated federal laws against undisclosed promotion. In 2020, the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, cracked down on Seagal for his violations, imposing fines totaling $157,000 in disgorgement and an additional $157,000 in penalties. Initially, Seagal paid $75,000 towards his $314,000 fine, and then he fled to Russia, presumably hoping that his Russian citizenship and close ties with Putin would protect the remainder of his funds. However, in 2021, a federal judge ruled that the SEC was entitled to the full penalty and could collect it through Seagal's business manager. Meanwhile, B2G founder John DeMar, who didn't flee the country, faced fraud charges and received a 5-year prison sentence in January 2023. As we reflect on the rise and fall, as well as the untold truth of Steven Seagal, it's clear that his story is as complex as it is captivating. From his early days as a martial arts instructor to his controversial career in Hollywood and beyond, Seagal has left an indelible mark on pop culture. What do you think is the most surprising revelation about Steven Seagal? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more fascinating insights into the lives of iconic figures like Seagal, be sure to like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, stay tuned.